Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the PRL LMP2 Le Mans series. Once again, here on the Global SimRacing Channel, it is round 3 of our season. We head to Silverstone today, an iconic circuit nestled in England, home to many fantastic races, and a track that I would say quite well suited these high-speed, high-grip machines we've got on the racetrack before us. You'll see it all live, as always, right here on GSRC. My name is Ryan Jones. Alongside me, as always, Peter Mackay and Joe Peak behind the scenes, using the cameras provided by Dougie Beard. And we can dive down and take a closer look at Silverstone with our GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Silverstone. Most famously known for being the first circuit to host a round of Formula One, this place has since become synonymous with British motorsports. Hosting everything from sports cars to touring cars to open wheels and even motorcycles, it's a track that fits a wide variety of vehicles. With 3 different layouts to choose from, you've got a little something for any level of racing. The longest of those layouts boasts 18 turns along 3.19 miles. That comes out to 5.13 kilometers in metrics, so it can take a bit to get around it, even in higher-powered machinery. Its main characteristics are the high-speed straights and corners and general lack of elevation change. Its most famous set of turns is most definitely the Maggots-Beckett sequence, in which anything with high downforce finds itself challenged with the rapid changes of direction. However, don't discount the first couple corners in this latest iteration of the track. Abbey and Farm often require a greatly balanced car and some serious bravery if you're side-by-side. Corners such as Village, Brooklyn, Stowe, and Vale see the majority of overtaking action, but in cars with less horsepower, expect the draft to offer other opportunities. The Hangar Straight is perhaps the most notorious for draft battles to erupt. All in all, this versatile racetrack located just northwest of London provides both history in its roots and action on the tarmac. The huge number of British fans that typically attend events are seldom left wanting.
Well, there you go, and Peter, this car with this track should be pretty good. High speed, for sure.
Oh, indeed. This is a wonderful combination that the Precision Racing League organisers have put together. It's this new Dallara P217, like you say, very, very efficient aerodynamics on this car, but giving it a lot of grip. And of course, it's got a lot of power as well, 600 horsepower. And Silverstone is a vast racetrack, and it's got loads of room to really get this this car wound up. So we're going to see these drivers push to the limit, and it's going to feel like they've got a bit of room to roam compared to the tight confines of Sebring, which we saw last time out. And 60 minutes around here is going to be pretty mentally taxing, because you've really got to set the top lap times here. You've really got to go almost beyond the grip that you think is there, because the aerodynamics in this car are just so impressive. So it's going to be very interesting to see as our drivers are out qualifying right now, trying to lay down that ultimate fast lap time.
That they are, and you're going to see everything today thanks to Simsa Simulation. MotorSports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at simsa.net. And as well, we are very grateful to ButtKicker. The ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. So 2 rounds down, we're about to begin our third. How does a championship look? The early protagonists to look out for. Well, there you go, Peter. Rodrigo meets Karmodov. Well, they're all pretty close, aren't they?
Yeah, just 2 rounds down so far, but yeah, we're seeing a little kind of pack emerging at the front, but Rodrigo Mies has been incredibly impressive so far. And, you know, but we've been to Interlagos, very, very tight, twisty, lots of second gear corners, third gear corners. Sebring kind of something in the middle, and here is where we're going to see these cars pushed right up to their limit. And you know, with only 13 incident points, we've seen a few drivers suffer with that, with you know, being given a drive-through penalty for those incident points. Here at Silverstone, the track limits are vigorously enforced, and you know, you just need to step over that line a couple of times, a couple of incidents, and before you know it, you're going down pit lane. And here at Silverstone, the tour through pit lane is probably one of the longest in the world. It takes forever to get through the pit lane here at Silverstone.
Well, you do cut out the first part of the pit lane. You take away the last little bit of the actual racetrack, and you can actually go faster on that lap. But yeah, the rest of the lane is annoyingly slow. Now, race details, obviously 13 incidents, so you're going to have to look out for drivers potentially eclipsing that and giving themselves a drive-through. Bonus point as well for setting the pole position time, so drivers definitely have an incentive to hunt for that. A 60-minute race, bonus point as well for fastest lap, and 3 incidents or less open setup, so everyone is adjusting this car to how they like it. At the moment in qualifying, with just under 10 minutes left, it is Mauricio Cuero that is fastest by just 0.02 of a second over Paulo Munoz.
Yeah, straight out the gate, there's some really fast lap times being laid down here at Silverstone. So we'll see who's got the best setup. Of course, the drivers will have a different setup for their qualifying as they will for the race. And one of the main things, obviously, is the fuel load. The drivers will try to carry only the kind of the minimum amount of fuel that they need for a qualifying run, because this car, you know, very, very lightweight, the Dallara P217. So, you know, weighs, well, the engine itself weighs only 135 kilos, so it's a seriously lightweight car. So every kilogram of fuel really makes a difference. 930 kilograms for this car. So they'll run probably, I don't know, maybe about 3 gallons, something like that, for a qualifying run, and just go out there, put a few laps in, and hope that you've done the job. But the great thing about this car is it has a very sophisticated Cosworth dashboard, which gives you so much information. Gives you tire temperature, tire pressure, also brake temperature, because this car has carbon composite brakes, so you do need to try and get them up to temperature before they work at their best.
Peter, you've been to Silverstone, haven't you?
I have indeed. In fact, I have actually seen this car competing in real life, actually. I went to the 4 Hours of Silverstone World Endurance Championship race last September, and the speeds are absolutely mind-boggling for these, even for the LMP2 cars. The LMP1 cars, well, they're just spaceships, but the LMP2, really, really impressive. And the Gibson engine, this naturally aspirated Gibson engine, makes a wonderful note as well. But I think the first thing when you go to Silverstone that surprises you is the sheer scale of the facility. It's been owned by the British Racing Drivers Club for, well, next year, 70 years they will have owned the circuit. And they've continually invested, and they've had to battle very, very hard, and they've had to use all of the biggest names in British motorsport to keep the circuit alive, to keep the British Grand Prix going. And there's been a lot of difficult times along the years, but it's definitely a facility on the up, and home to the Porsche driving experience as well. So if you buy a Porsche brand new in the UK, you get to come to Silverstone and have a play in one of their cars.
It is on the list of things that I shall do in my next visit back to England. Steve Gory hasn't set a lap time yet, although he's just coming into the last little left-right, and then this last corner is quite awkward. It's not quite flat out from what I saw on board with someone else earlier on. A 146.5 goes 22nd. It's just, you want to use all that, and if you use the outside of the racetrack and pick up an off-track, you can go flat, but certainly as grip starts to fade, if you're behind someone as well, you're going to have to lift off. It's just a little bit too tight.
Yeah, and also what I've found is that these it might just be a question of a setup that could maybe dial this out. But on the when you're applying the throttle coming out of a slow corner, which the last corner is the club chicane, Oh dear me! As Christian Iceland nearly runs into the back of one of the Pearson's cars. Oh wow! That's a big one. But yes, that's coming out the slow corners. When you apply the throttle, the power just comes in straight away, and managing oversteer on the exit is really, really tricky. I was watching some of the Petit Le Mans here on iRacing on Saturday, and coming out of turn 7 at Road Atlanta, there was even some of the very top sim racers really getting quite a lot of oversteer there as well. So managing that throttle on the exit is, you're right, is a really, really important part of that part of the lap.
Well, the thing with downforce is it becomes more and more efficient the faster you go. So the slow stuff, it doesn't have much of an effect as Ferraris comes through club, through that last little corner and across the line. Ferraris will not find an improvement on that lap and will stay in 18th. Modov at the moment has 1.5 tenths in hand over Quero in second. Munoz back there in third. Not far away either. Is this an improvement from Gark? No, it's not. He will stay in 16th position. Just under 4 minutes remaining now in this session. See how he fires through the first sector. Such a fun run. That's where the downforce works nicely, is through Abbey, Farm Curve, and then onto the brakes in the village.
Yeah, there's a lot of corners. There's just really nice sequence. I mean, my favourite probably is the Maggots Beckett's Chapel section as well. You know, Lewis Hamilton says, Maggots Beckett's Chapel, he says, Eau Rouge has nothing. See, that's where we're coming right now, riding on board Nathan Lewis. And here, let's just take a deep breath and hang on for dear life. It's going like, dear me. The corner speed that you can take, and then you're just going to get on the power early, use the curb on the outside, and onto the hanger straight underneath the Johnny Walker Scotch Whisky Bridge as well. Lovely.
Of course you do. There you go. Nathan Lewis, we'll pick up with him later on. He slowed down actually up in 12th place. Nicholas Bournand needs 0.2 of a second to pop up inside the top 10. Can he find it on this lap? No, he can't. That was just over a couple seconds off, and someone actually was off the road in the background of the shot there. That was Rodrigo Improta, and he's currently last of drivers that set a time, so he's struggling just a touch out there at the moment. 2.5 minutes remaining. Nicholas Rubilar is in third, so he just pops up ahead of Paulo Munoz on his most recent lap. Can he do 2 fast laps in a row? Generally, the answer's been no. And the answer is going to be no for him, as he has a big slide out of Stowe.
Yeah, just that is a really, really tricky, really tricky corner. Stowe, it's very, very fast right-hander in one of these cars. But the track limits, if you step onto the green paint at all on the exit, you get given an off-track penalty. And in qualifying, that's critical. There's going to be a lot of guys who've had to have laps scrubbed here. You don't have to step over much. And when you're going for that qualifying time, it's a really, really fine balance. And that is one of the challenges here at Silverstone circuit. But it's wonderful to see this. I'd have to say this is just a great combination of the Dallara P2 car and the Silverstone circuit. And actually this car didn't have the most success in the World Endurance Championship, but it was owned by Racing Team Netherlands, which is owned by a guy called Frits van Aert, who is one of the richest men in Holland, and he owns a supermarket called Jumbo, probably named after the size of his wallet.
That's not where I thought you were going with that. Paulo Munoz rips it through Wellington straight. That's a tough little sequence. Through that fast left of Brooklands, trying to get it slowed for Luffield, then on the power through Woodcott up into that, cutting it very tight. Cops. Tip it in, hope it sticks.
Yeah,
it sticks.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, there's a lot of grip there, isn't there, from the Michelin tyres in these cars. And notice there, Paulo Munoz using the Superbike line there, just scrubbing the wall on the way through. When you watch the British Superbike guys, when they come here to Silverstone, they really do go close in to the wall. Interesting, the MotoGP guys run it a little bit wider, which is interesting, probably because they're hanging on for dear life to their 300 horsepower machine. But yeah, it's in a really impressive section. But the one, that Brooklands and Luffield section is really, really challenging in any car, but in one of these particularly, as you mentioned, at slow speed, the downforce just deserts you. And these cars are pretty unhappy at low speed. So it might be that actually that gives a really good opportunity at the slow speed section to get some overtaking done. Good time there.
Munoz finds 0.3 of a second. It puts him up only one spot, but the top four are incredibly tight. 6 thousandths of a second, or 68 thousandths of a second, covering the front two rows of the grid. Christian Eisler crosses the line. He puts in his fastest lap of the session on his final lap, but it doesn't improve him any positions. Kenny Rodriguez looking to find something late as well. He's currently 30 seconds, sorry. He'll stay there, but that was his fastest lap. On that last lap, Rodrigo Improta looking to nudge himself out of 33rd.
Crazy that half a second is covering the top 12. That is really, really fiercely competitive. Rodrigo Mies, he's in 9.
Improta popped up 2 spots there at the end, and there's Rodrigo Mies up into 9th. Yes,
he's in 9th. That's not where he wants to be. He's got David Holland behind him in 10th, but Rodrigo Mies, he's only just under 4/10 off pole, and he's in 9th. That's probably not what he's used to.
Still on a lap as well, as Mark McDonald doesn't quite improve. Meets 44.204 goes to 5th.
Clutch lap time right at the death of qualifying. That could be critical because that hops him. That hops him 3 rows forward.
It does. That's everyone done. Let's take a look at how they line up then. 60 minutes around the Silverstone circuit. It is Kyle Modov on the pole. Mauricio Cuero will start alongside. Nathan Lewis begins in 3rd with Paulo Munoz on his outside. Rodrigo Mies that late improvement, puts him 5th. Nicolas Rubelas starting 6th. Lucas Bacigalupo starting 7th, next to Chris McGuire in 8th. And the 5th row of the grid occupied by Horatio Calquin and David Holland.
Beginning on the 6th row of the grid is Ignacio Rodrigo Fredes and Christian Eisler. Row 7 will be Nicolas Bornand alongside David McDonald. Row 8 will be Eduardo Avila alongside David Fishman. Row 9 will be Pablo Valenzuela Uribe alongside Sean Romig. And row 10 will be Stephen Verade and Michael Oakley.
Steve Daori and Michelle Ferraris on row 11, Mark McDonald, Rodrigo Munoz on row 12, Christopher Richards and David Crostelli 25th and 26th, ahead of Byron Daly, who's a very good oval driver, and Hugo Galaz in 28th. Williams, Martins de Silva and Ted Lowendijk round out your top 30. Running out your field is Rodrigo Improta, Sean DeHamel, Kenny Rodriguez, and Eric Luke in driving up to set lap time. We'll see if he gets on to the race track. Something we didn't pick up on earlier going through our points was the team's standings, which predictably are just as close as the driver's standings. It is currently Punto CL Racing Red leading by just 16 points over Delta Sport U4K, who've actually nabbed the pole there with Kyle Modov. Punto also there in 3rd with the black team, TQ Engineering Green and Pure Sims eSports make up the rest of that top 5. So keep that in mind as we go through today's event and the rest of the season. There is teams points available as well.
So it's a wonderful packed grid of cars here. Now this is a very, very short parade behind the pace car, and that's going to be very important for 2 reasons. The tyres will get no chance to get up to working temperature, but also the brakes. The first time the guys ask for the brakes at full power, they are not going to have anywhere near the braking performance that they are used to. So be careful. They'll have to be very, very careful in the opening lap or so to get those tyres and brakes up to temperature, because these cold carbon brakes, you put your foot through you feel like you're putting your foot through the floor and nothing's happening. It's quite frightening. So watch for that in this packed grid of LMP2 cars. Great to see here in the Precision Racing League.
Certainly is, and looks like we are going green. Leader's gone early, and the field is going to have to file their way through Club and then across the line. So it is a fantastic start for Carl Modov. He leads them through Abbey. Mauricio Cuero second. Nathan Lewis third. Look at them using all the racetrack as they hunt for grip. A little bit of contact, and there is contact, and around through Abbey goes one car. Did they collect anyone else as someone's fired off down at Village as well? Gonna have to rejoin a quarter later. That was
Moon, I think, in the Pure Sims car.
Yeah,
that's not a good start. And Munoz actually came back on track quite further forward than where he went off. So the system might give him quite a significant penalty for that slowdown penalty. But they come through Luffield for the first time, and guys at the front, they've managed that cold tyre and those cold brakes well. And it's so fiercely competitive and time so close. Really, really tough to hold position here. But who said that high downforce cars can't race?
no one. Well, actually, no, sorry, everyone in Formula 1. As we...
That was the point.
through Maggots, Beckett's. Such an iconic part of the racetrack. Such fun to watch the cars fly through there. And then onto the Hangar Straight. I almost said Wellington Straight. That is very much the Hangar Straight. Modov. After initial burst, he hasn't pulled any more of a gap on Cuero. So at least early on, it looks like Cuero might go with him here.
Yeah, he'll have to. Cuero will have to really get a move on here to try and keep on to the back of Carl Modov. Now, interestingly with these cars, I found they do have an excellent draft benefit if you can get tucked in behind the car in front. The aerodynamics are such that you do get a good toll from the car in front. So if you can hang on to the car in front, really, really important. And we saw that last time out with Rodrigo Mies at Sebring, where he just sort of kept his powder dry, kept calm, let the guys in the front do all the hard work, and saved a bit of fuel, and that was the key to the race. Just getting that jump on pit lane. Remember, the drivers have to come in for a pit stop. These cars, you'll maybe get about maximum 40 minutes on a tank, but likely to be somewhere between 35 and 38 minutes here at Silverstone, because you're on the throttle a lot here.
Off the road, Nathan Lewis. He's going to have to rejoin on the exit of Luffield. Be the safest place for him, but that is position after position flying by him. He gets back on behind David Fishman. So he's lost over 10 spots. Here's the replay. Into Brooklands all by himself. On the initial turn, it looks like the car wiggled, and then from that point on, they just couldn't get the car turned in and couldn't rejoin there because that is the racing line.
He did well to not rejoin the racetrack in an unsafe manner. We see that quite often, but not here. There's such a high standard of driving. They understand what the conduct is, so you've got to give Nathan Lewis some credit for that. But wonder he got a good run in the draft, and I wonder when he came out, he had maybe just had less grip than he was expecting, perhaps. I don't know, but these P2 cars, they are just a handful. Even on the straights, they do kind of porpoise a bit slightly with the, especially on bumpier tracks. Here at Silverstone, not such an issue, but they are pretty busy cars to handle. As Carl Modov lays down a 145.2 on lap 3. That's pretty impressive.
I think we just missed Nathan Lewis nudged his way by Sean Romig up through Stowe, and that created a bit of a checkup for Ferrari and Mark McDonald. So Nathan Lewis hurriedly trying to get back some of the spots he's lost. So there he is now, heading down Wellington Straight. He's got David Fishman, Michael Overbay, the two cars in front, then that train from Romig on backwards. And Romig looking like he's struggling just a little bit at the moment. Up in P6 though. Oh, hey, steady on lads, into Cops. That is sketchy. David Holland Trying to get by Chris McGrath, who lifts off, lets him go into Maggots. Tell you what, he had a real crack into Cops.
Yeah, that's to get by in that state, that part of the circuit is, that takes big guts indeed. He's right on board with Paulo Munoz, recovering from his little off-track excursion on lap 1, following his Pure Sims eSports teammate. And the Pure Sims team, one of the owners of that team is 2017 British Touring Car champion Ash Sutton, who's in contention for this year's championship in his Infinity, and had quite a good weekend here at Silverstone a couple of weeks ago in that particular championship, as Mauricio Quero raises the bar, goes into the 44s. Wow. Tell you what, Ryan, I did not expect the drivers to get into the 44s this early.
Moto does a 45, and Quero says, hold my beer. So the gap between them is 1.2 seconds, and it is a blistering pace early on. A pace that I expect is only going to get quicker as the fuel burns out of these cars as well. Designed for long stints, the tyres should be able to stick with them for the majority of this race. It is 3.4 back to Rodrigo Meets in third. 5 seconds and 6 seconds then back to Bassi Galupo and Nicholas Rubala, who are in 4th and 5th and not that far apart from each other. In fact, I would say 4th on back is where things start to tighten up. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, there you go. All very close together. And thinking about a move into Cops up the inside, side by side. And that's move done. Good stuff.
Another really impressive move there. It sees these guys, they're finding all kinds of spaces to get through here at Silverstone. You make it a good point about the tyres, Ryan, because I think over 60 minutes around here at Silverstone, there's a lot of load on both sides of the tyres. Not a worry about track temperature, 22 degrees centigrade, so not too bad really. But the layout of the Silverstone circuit, the high speed demand on the tyre, lots of big load, and I think by the end of the 60 minutes, these tyres will be past their best. So that tyre management is going to be important. But with the pace that's being set at the front, it doesn't appear that that's a concern right now.
That move at Cops, by the way, that was Horatio Calquin getting by Paulo Munoz. Still watching them on screen as they come through the first sector. Munoz almost a little bit too wide through Abbey. Looking at lap times, I reckon Chris McGrath might be under threat from Horatio Calquin as well in a minute. Because last time by, their times are identical. And that was with Calquin going full. What's an action hero that does something dangerously that would be what Calquin just did at Cops?
An action hero? Alan McNish? Del Dundee?
Yeah. Alright, Horatio Calquin. Yeah, alright. Sorry, my internet dropped out. I couldn't speak back. Horatio Calquin. Yeah, full Alan McNish up at Cops. Still managed to do the same lap time as Chris McGrath. So, should be able to run him down in clean air.
Indeed, that's what Alan McNish used to do. He used to drivers used to hate the sign of the little Scotsman appearing in the mirrors in the dominant Audi diesels and the LMP1 cars. So yeah, that would be he's my superhero. That's for sure. So they come underneath the. Speaking of very tightly, Ryan, as they come underneath the Johnny Walker Bridge.
How close those three are, yeah, through Stowe. Stowe's fun. You head up the hill, you turn in, and back down the hill. Is that one of the places where it's a little bit steeper than you realise when you see it in person? I mean, even on iRacing, it looks like a pretty decent little fall-off.
Yes, good point. It is. When you come out of Stowe, that drop is pretty significant. I remember going to the British Grand Prix in 2010, the year with it was the Mark Webber, not bad for a number 2 driver year, and he drove beautifully all day. As did Sebastian Vettel, who had a puncture at the beginning of the race and worked his way through into the top 5. It was very impressive to watch as well, and a lot of the overtaking was done at that the chicane at Club. But yeah, the drop down there is very steep, and when the MotoGP guys come in braking, you often see some guys coming off there at the on the brakes on the motorcycles, because it's that drop in it is quite sharp. You're right, and that can really unsettle the car under braking.
Remember when Nathan Lewis made his move on Sean Romig, or rather I highlighted it after Lewis's mistake? Well, this is him, post-move, closed up to the back of Fishman and Overbay now. He was about 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds behind him, maybe a little bit more, so he's found good pace, which is unsurprising given he qualified third out of Chapel Curve. That was a mistake from Fishman that's going to give the momentum to Nathan Lewis, and this should be relatively easy on the inside line for Stowe, and Fishman is just going to ease off and let him take that. So Lewis gets back into 13th, still -10, still got work to do.
And also notice he's got a Lewis helmet on as well, and in this case Lewis Hamilton, his replica helmet, which you see quite often here on iRacing. Of course, programs like Trading Paints give you a wonderful array of paint schemes for your driver's suit, the car, and helmet as well. But a lot of drivers at this level, Ryan, a lot of them will race for a particular sim racing team who have their own unique liveries as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the notable ones, certainly in our championship, of course, the Punto team, Delta Sport, E4K, riding their distinctive livery, Pure Sim eSports as well. But yeah, a lot of drivers still even then like to whack their own helmet on, because helmets are seen as a bit of an identifier, aren't they, to each individual driver. Most seen in Formula 1, I suppose. They are so identifiable by that, and then some organisations demand a lot of sponsor coverage. I'm looking at you, Red Bull, on their helmets, and then there's teams like Renault and the helmet that Ricciardo's come up with for the last 2 years, really showing off his personality there. So helmets are a good identifier and a good way to, like Ricciardo, show off the personality.
Indeed, yes, it's absolutely true. They call it. I've heard some racing drivers refer to it as their business card, because you know, when you're standing, you say, "Who on earth is that going through that corner so quickly?" And you go, "Oh, well, that's." And they see the paint scheme. It's huge in motorcycle racing as well. And a lot of the guy that paints Valentino Rossi's helmets, he says that, you know, the colours are very powerful, and you know, it just gives the rider, or in this case the driver, just that little bit of additional comfort, and anything that can help makes a big difference. So if you're happy with how your car looks and how your helmet looks, you know, it can just be worth that 100th of a second. It sounds silly, but of course it's very much important between the ears. Go on.
So you're saying it works like a good suit does for confidence?
Yes, exactly so, yes.
In the process of Lewis getting by Fishman, Sean Romig's actually lashed onto the back of this trio of cars, making it a quartet going through Brooklands. And what we're seeing is that there seems to be a little period where it becomes quite hard to exact your speed differential. It's about here, where the turbulent air from the car in front affects you, but once you eclipse that awkward, what's the gap, half a second margin, you get in underneath their dirty air, and you really close up quite quickly, and you make the moves that Lewis made a lap ago, and he is very fast through Maggots, Beckett's, and Adam Chapel Curve. This should be another move at Stowe for him, with a good exit. The slipstream isn't strong enough. Down the hanger straight, he gets closer. Does he lunge to the inside? No, he's just a little bit too far back that time round.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is one thing where it's the open setup's going to come in, because Silverstone is a nightmare to set up a car, because you've got so many corners which are so fast, and you need as much aerodynamic grip as you possibly can. However, the more aerodynamic wing that you're running on your car, the more draggy it is, therefore slower on the straight. So it's very much a compromise. So when you're going down the Wellington Straight or the Hangar Straight, and you've got the car set up for optimum performance in like Maggots, Beckett's Chapel, for example, the really fast corners, you have to compromise. You have to compromise somewhere. But that's sometimes when you see two guys battling on track, you think, oh, that car's faster down the straight, and often it will be down to the way that the car is trimmed. And of course, with these LMP2 cars, they're so sophisticated. There is a lot that you can adjust aerodynamically on these cars. The different 1 or 2 dive planes, different wing angles, all kinds of stuff.
You can see on the left-hand side of your screen the positions gained and lost. No big movers forward, maybe the exception of Michael Overbay and Byron Daly, both +8. The one that stands out is Nathan Lewis, -10. He is on the recovery trail, and he is still stuck behind Michael Overbay, who's about to be +7, I would say, because he's going to lose one of his spots that he's worked so hard to find. We are 15 minutes into the race, 25% done of the total race distance, and Lewis is about the exact same distance behind Overbay as he was the last time through this straight, which means no move up at Stowe for him. Now, are they catching that car in front? My word, they are. That is Pablo Valenzuela Uribe. He did a 49.2 on the last lap, 3 seconds slower than this group. Has he equalised on this lap? Not really, a 47.1 and a 46.9 for the cars behind.
Yeah, he looks to be a little bit, that's certainly a little bit closer. His optimum lap time is actually quicker than the guys behind him, but maybe just made a mistake on the previous lap. But yeah, and maybe got a little bit distracted with the guys maybe closing in slightly. But I tell you, who we need to watch for it throughout at the end of the race is Mauricio Cuero. He's the only guy who's in the 1:44 bracket, and he is sitting perfectly behind Karl Modolf right now. He's 1.3 seconds behind, so he's got, you can see, there he is, he's in clear view there. That's Modolf at the front in the 948 machine, Cuero in the 79, and yeah, they just look how close the times are. But I think he's just keeping himself in clean air, keeping it nice and tidy, and keeping a bit of tire before. I think he's just holding off slightly and trying to keep the fuel consumption down as well. So watch for Cuero later in the race.
I'm thinking that he's in a good spot for the undercut, and not for the tyre advantage he'll get, because they're not going to take tyres, but for coming out in clean air. If he can time the stop well, he's going to have to, because there is a bunch of traffic in and around his pit window at the moment. If he can come out in a big pocket of clean air, there is every chance that he could pump in a very fast outlap. And even if Modolf comes in at the end of that next lap, could jump him.
Yep, absolutely. He's certainly in the right place to do that. And if you think about lane time as well, I think he's definitely got to be saving a minimal amount of fuel from Modolf, but that could make the difference. Just being able to just kind of stalk Modolf and just be that little bit better. But although the drivers, as we say, we're not expecting the drivers to take tyres, but for that reason, having to make the boots last all the way to the end, if you cannot, tear the life out of them in the first stint, you will bear benefit of that later in the race as well. The tyres will degrade like they do in real life. So I think that's got to be a factor here at Silverstone, because making with cars with this much aerodynamic load, it's going to be so hard to get the tyres to perform in the last 5 to 10 minutes. So
Sorry, Peter.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut across you, Ryan. Carry on.
Can I claim tiredness from doing my good deed for the year, rescuing a random cat from my balcony and putting up with its incessant meowing all night long, into right now it's still meowing?
I think that's fair enough. Yeah, I think you are. Turns out you are like Crocodile Dundee then, a man looking after wildlife.
Here we go. Nathan Lewis up the inside of Michael Overbay, who lifts off the throttle and says, there you go, you've earned that. And that is the smart thing to do. for Michael Oberbay. No point fighting that. He's got a little margin at the moment back to David Fishman. He doesn't want to throw that away. Speaking of Fishman, he is up the front a little bit here from Sean Romig.
Yes, indeed. That is a good train following along here. Michael Overbay, David Fishman as well. 40 minutes down, so plenty of time left until the pit window. If anybody wanted to roll the dice, they could, if they wanted to, could jump into the pit lane now if they really wanted to, and fill up and be okay to get to the end of the race. But it would be a kind of alternative call. These cars are so dependent on the weight that they're carrying. So if you can do some laps on low fuel, it can be, especially around somewhere like Silverstone, can be half a second difference from a fuel tank, maybe even up to a second actually, such is the difference between the low fuel and the full tank.
Yeah, just generally late want to come out sort of as late as you can. Let the tyres cool down a little bit, because they're, you know, on the edge of overheating, aren't they? Out there as you thrash them around this 5.89 kilometre racetrack. Let them cool down a little bit, come out of pit lane and pump in a really fast lap on the low fuel. Out of Chapel Curve. Who's that still on the right hand side of the racetrack?
Lewis, is it?
Lewis, yeah.
So he's had a slowdown.
Well, all that hard work goes awry, and I think he's picked it up on the right here.
Yes. Yeah, he did. It's very easy to do there through Maggotts Beckett's Chapel. You're just really threading the eye of the needle there. So for our viewers who are unfamiliar with iRacing, basically that's not a technical failure or anything. Normally if you see a car going slow, you think the engine's blown up, but that is basically an automatic penalty system which iRacing automatically administers. If you cut the track enough, it will give you a time penalty which you actually have to serve by slowing down. So it'll say you need to slow down for 1 second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever, depending how bad the transgression would be. So I would suspect that would have been about 1.5 seconds that the iRacing system would say you need to back off for. And of course, as we saw, he lost a whole heap of positions there.
Indeed he did. Hey, if you didn't know, we're all about fan service here at Global SimRacing Channel. We do this for you guys, pretty much. I'm sure you'll echo that sentiment there, Peter and Joe, behind the scenes. So, we also keep it on the YouTube chat. So, David Williams, hello. There is your shout out. Thank you for watching us. Please stay tuned for the rest of this race. We love having your view. Now, my question to you, Peter, that off track where it was, that right, is that Maggotts or is it Beckett?
Oh, yeah, they all come so quickly. I actually don't know. From my notes, it goes Maggotts and then Beckett and then Chapel. But I would say that indiscretion was sort of halfway between Maggotts and Beckett. So it's almost like there's another corner in there as well. So I think that's why you hear a lot of people refer to Maggotts, Beckett and Chapel together, because it is just like left, right, left, and you're through, and you're just hanging on for dear life in these cars. They're so fast. So yeah, that's I would say that's about as good as an answer as I can give, but echo the sentiments as well. Hello, David. I hope you're enjoying the broadcast here from Silverstone Circuit, the home of British motorsport, well, apart from Knockhill, of course.
I don't think anyone's thought home of British motorsport and then gone, yes, that random track in Scotland.
I have.
Scotland? Scotland? Scotland, even. He's just so unimportant, Peter, that I don't even know how to pronounce it properly.
You don't know until you don't knock it till you've tried it. It's like a miniature Nürburgring. It's a fantastic circuit and very close to my heart. So this is a really interesting battle, and David Cristelli in the veteran racing machine in the kind of very, very jazzy paint scheme of blue and yellow car. And he is fighting off the advances. Who is that right behind him? Is that
Gyori?
Ah, is that Lewis's teammate? Similar paint scheme.
Wait, hang on. Those two lines almost converged for a minute through Brooklands, and Gyori's trying to go the long way around at left field. If he can keep the car there, it's a good exit for him. He's not got a good exit. That's a shame. I'm sure Romig looking to be a part of this.
Oh,
this could get awkward.
Oh, God.
Up into Cops. Romic backs out. But Cristelli and Gaiori are going to go wheel to wheel. And around the outside goes Steve Gaiori. And as Cristelli's line was compromised, he had to back out of the throttle. That allows Sean Romic to poke by him as well.
So we have Paulo Munoz in the lane. Round he goes then, round the new wing complex, which was made in 2010. It opened. That was the first Formula 1 Grand Prix with the new layout. And normally, Ryan, when you see cars, or you see tracks that are given modern updates and changed in layout, often it's not improved as far as fans are concerned or as drivers are concerned. But I'll be honest, the changes they made to Silverstone really improved the racing and, to be honest, the on-track product. Really, really impressive, and the facilities are second to none, as well as Paulo Munoz comes in for a big glug of fuel. So he's one of our earliest front runners to come in and take a pit stop. Also, Mauricio Quero, look at this. He is just starting to reel in mode off now. That gap was a second. It's now half a second. So Quero really putting the hammer down. And oh, who's this off? Now 777 Rubilar's gone off. Oh, well. That's not what we expect to see.
So what's he done? He's heading towards Cops. I wonder if he's messed up his turn-in and fired off at very high speed. Yep, grabs the grass. Nothing you can do once you touch the grass, tipping it into a high-speed corner such as that. Luckily, plenty of runoff there. Track designers anticipated that mistake, and he escapes without damage, as the leaders had reduced the gap to half a second between Modolf and Quero, but now it's back out to a second. In the background, Nathan Lewis is getting by Sean Romic again.
Yeah, this is an intriguing battle at the front here. You almost feel like these guys are just sizing one another up. Maybe not absolutely keen to show their whole hand until later in the race. They've got a pretty good margin over Rodrigo Mies, who is 7.2 seconds behind Modolf. So interesting stuff. It looks like it's going to come down to these two guys, and you just wonder if Modolf's maybe just keeping his powder dry and not wanting to show his hand. It's like a game of poker here at Silverstone between these two guys.
Just get the feeling that Quero might be the one holding the straight flush.
Possibly. Yeah, I'm not. Obviously, I'm not. Oh, now that Quero there on the very, very limit of the track. I wonder, will he have to serve a slowdown penalty here? No, he won't. But it was very, very close. He had a wheel right up on the dirt there. That was very close indeed. So yeah, I mean, their outright pace is very, very similar. Quero's just a bit quicker on the fastest lap, but close enough that it's it's not dominant. That's for sure. So I think it's all going to come down to the pit stop times and the strategy there. Is Nathan Lewis trying to recover from his little blunder earlier on, which just one tiny step over track. Well, one little tiny step over track limits, and it just cost him very, very dearly.
Fishman's one with the momentum here, and Overbay is going to defend. He knows his fights with Fishman. He's going to force him to go the long route at Stowe. That's going to allow Nathan Lewis to get the run. Now Fishman's having to defend, but he moved more than once, and Lewis goes into the back of him. And around he goes. Yeah, I think Fishman got a little bit overzealous with his defense there.
Let's get a replay then, thanks to our producer Joe Peak. So riding on board with Nathan Lewis, and yeah, Fishman is getting pretty busy, isn't he? And then so they come hard onto the brakes. There's quite a few different lines here around Stowe.
Defends left, comes back to the right.
Yeah, I mean, moving. I'm never a fan of moving in braking zones. It's asking for trouble, and yeah, I have to say that could have been avoided, I guess.
Down the Wellington straight, on the brakes. It is baffling how late these cars are able to brake as well. Their braking package is phenomenal. I just went and checked, and oh, just before the 50, Lewis broke into Brooklands.
Gee, that is scary, and that's what these carbon brakes do. You've just got to go into, you just got to trust that they're going to hold, and the braking performance is absolutely extraordinary as well. It's crazy how they can make how long the brakes can last without a brake change in the really long endurance races. Is how durable the carbon fiber brakes are. But there is a price to pay. They are not cheap. Carbon brakes, and it's I find it fascinating that they have them on road cars, because to get the necessary heat in them on the road must be must actually be pretty well. I certainly wouldn't have them on a car here in Scotland, that's for sure, because getting them up to temperature would be pretty hard work. Is that Nathan Lewis diving into pit lane?
Yes, it is, with a trail of smoke as he pinches those brakes. So Nathan Lewis pits, and I don't think this will drag anyone else from around him in response to him. But I do think the pit window is getting towards its closing stages, so I think we're going to see a flurry of stops in a few minutes. It is pretty close between Bassi Galupo and David Holland at the moment for 4th position as well. These guys are 11 seconds away from the lead of the race, 4 seconds away from Arrigo Meats in 3rd, so 4th probably the ultimate position for both of these guys in this race, and there is not much separating them for it. Getting towards pit stops, you know how easy it is to gain or lose down on pit road.
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, as we saw, the field was so tightly packed in qualifying. Half a second covering the top 12, and half a second in pit lane is nothing. Whereas in the racetrack, it's a reasonable amount. But yeah, absolutely. I think the pit lane is going to be really, really important, such as the depth of field that we have here. But yeah, we've been running for about 32 minutes, and really at about the 35 to 38 minute mark, the fuel light comes on, and the car is giving a little tap on the shoulder saying, "I'm thirsty. I want some more race fuel to get me to the end of the race." So these looks like most of the front runners are going for the run the tank absolutely to the fumes, and then have a little splash and then dash to the end.
All right, Mr. Knowledgeable. There we go. Romeg's into the lane. What is the race fuel these guys use?
I would imagine it's either Sunoco or VP Racing fuel. Those are the two main suppliers, but I genuinely don't know what the fuel supplier is for these cars. I think it depends on the series they're in, because they've raced Asian Le Mans Series, European Le Mans Series, and in the WEC as well. We even saw one of these cars at Le Mans this year, the Cetolaro, the Italian team, running it. But I do know from a friend of mine that races in the Mini Challenge that Sunoco race fuel for his car, which he has to use as part of the rules, is £3.50 a litre, even though the car will run very happily on a pump fuel, which is £1 a litre.
Oh, off the road in the background. Who was that?
Is that Lewis coming out of pit lane on cold tyres? Ah, so there you go. Cold tyres. Cool air tyres, I should say. They're probably still pretty warm after coming out of pit lane, but maybe just got caught out there ever so slightly.
So Lewis is behind. So Lewis has come out behind Romig then. Pretty sure he'd already got back by Romig, hadn't he? Before the pit stop.
I think he maybe had, and then made a little bit of an error. So yeah, interesting stuff there. It's not been Nathan Lewis's day, has it? It's been a really tough day at the office for him in the number 27 Dallara. Would this be a bad time to mention that he's running Casey Stoner's old race number?
Good number. Casey Stoner's had a lot more than motorbikes as well. No, he actually raced in the Super 2 series here in Australia for a year, the development category for supercars. It didn't go that well. His run, that is. Romig has a look for a minute, decides better of it. So that's not Romig, that's his teammate who dives into the pits and onto the brakes.
Now, Is it? If I'm not mistaken, is that Lewis coming back into pit lane? I think he might be serving a drive-through. Because he was really late on the brakes coming in that time. I think he might be serving a drive-through. Forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I'm sure Nathan Lewis has already been into pit lane, hasn't he? He has, so he's serving a drive-through penalty.
Well,
Or points possibly.
Yes. No, he stopped.
That's a speeding penalty, because I did this just 2 days ago in my Corvette, actually. I sped into pit lane, and I think it's a 40-second stop and hold, which I thought was incredibly harsh, and I can imagine Nathan will probably agree right now.
Yeah. Oh, it is not surprising that you got a speeding penalty. Bacigalupo is now in the pit lane, potentially? Yes. I was wondering why there was just one car on our screen for a minute, when there should have been two. It's because he's coming to pit lane and left his rival out there on the racetrack.
I think this is when the
Still
lane
waiting on our top two to come in.
I think the lane is going to get very busy now, because we're right on the limit of fuel, and of course it's a long lap here at Silverstone, so you know it's one where you've kind of got to err on the side of the caution. You do not want to be caught short out on the circuit. So yeah, what will be 36 minutes into the stint. It'll certainly one lap, maybe two at the very most, and then it will be time to come in and get some fuel.
So out of pit lane comes Bacigalupo, and he rejoins in 16th position, right ahead of Steve Gaiori, who has not come to the lane in this race yet. And he is the first car that has pitted, though.
Okay, so we'll keep an eye to see who on our leaders who are going to go in. Karl Modov, yes, Modov is in now. Is Quero going to cover him? Yes, he does. So, the driver's leaving it very, very late coming into pit lane. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of them get a speeding penalty, and that would be huge for the outcome of the race. So both Modov and Quero come in right behind one another. So this is going to be fascinating to see who has been able to save the time on the lane, who has been very efficient with their driving style, used the least amount of fuel, so they've got less to put in the tank and therefore can get out more quickly. Here comes the race on pit lane.
Who has the better stop? There's the live pit stop comparison. On board with Quero, Modov in front of him.
Oh, this is tense. It's really tense. And oh, there goes Modov. Oh, almost no difference at all. So, it's going to be a straight fight on pace to the end, Ryan.
Yeah, it looks like Modov may have just stretched a fraction out of pit lane there. But it is going to be a straight fight. Quero's going to have to get the stop done on the racetrack somehow. And looks like they have rejoined. Still in first and second. I think everyone came in behind them, potentially.
It looks like it. So it's a clear fight to the end for these guys. Interesting. They'll likely come across a little bit of traffic in the next little while, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue for them. They should be able to get by without too much fuss. But yeah, Modov, 0.2 of a second gained in pit lane. Now, as we saw, the top four covered by, 60 thousandths of a second. 0.2 is hard earned around here at this level, and that could be pivotal.
It certainly could. 1.2 seconds of difference, 21 minutes remaining in Silverstone. This one is going to go right down to the wire. It closes by a couple tenths, so Quero is slightly better through Maggots and Beckett's. Down the hanger straight, he's not quite in range to get much of a towing effect. Trying to look at that leaderboard on the left, figure out where the gap's coming down on the racetrack, where it's going back out.
It's interesting. Rodrigo Mies, he's really been in case of damage limitation today. He was sitting in sort of 8th, 9th position till the very, very end of qualifying, and then put a lap in that got him to 5th on the grid and avoided the any of the incidents in lap 1. And he's held 3rd place confidently all race long. And for the championship leader, Rodrigo Mies, that's exactly what he needs to do. I mean, Modov and Quero seem to have a touch more pace, not much, but just a little bit. And but he's doing what he needs to do, gathering those points. And over the course of the season, that is what it's all about, to get that championship. You see the car wiggle there as he puts the power down. It just, the rear of the car just gives it a little shake and a little shimmy, and then back on the power and up he goes. And of course, these cars so aerodynamically efficient. Of course, they are called an LMP for a reason, Le Mans prototype, because, well, that is what these cars are designed all around. They've designed to be bought by customer racing teams, well, if they're buying one of these cars, probably they have ambitions to take it to Le Mans and hopefully win.
That was a car in pit lane, and that is Ted Lowendijk, who should be jumping that stationary car down on the pits. I say down because the pit lane at Silverstone is actually below the normal racing surface. That's why you see them rising up the hill as they come out of pit lane. And this is a replay for Teddy Lowendijk. Did he make a mistake through club? Ooh, yes, he did.
Oh, great presence of mind. I mean, I tell you what, I wonder if he's racing with a VR headset, because that was really good presence of mind there, but the visibility in these cars is so poor. I mean, they're probably the safest racing car in the world. You're in this absolute cocoon in the carbon fiber chassis, but the visibility is not good. It's a bit like looking through your letterbox in one of these cars. And but he really good presence there, not to come back onto the track and clash with his competitors.
There's Mark McDonald. He's behind Michael Overbay at the moment. Up through Stowe, heading back down towards Club. These two drivers having pretty decent races. Overbay is +7 and Mark McDonald is +9 in this one. So they've both found a few spots up from where they started, and it's not a race where there's been massive movers and shakers in the field. In fact, +8 and +9 are some of the biggest moves we've seen from drivers, with the exception of losing spots, such as Lewis has, and also Chris McGrath is -8, so he's not had a great race either.
No, he hasn't. But yeah, Modov, look at this. He's just lost about a 1/10.5 to Mauricio Quero, and now Quero looks to be in draft range, and Modov's worried about that. Look at that, just waving on the straight ever so slightly, trying to just break that aerodynamic toe. So the car in front, Modov, he is punching a big Dallara-shaped hole in the air for Quero to go through, which will make him just have a little bit less air resistance on the car and increase road speed. But as you mentioned earlier on, Ryan, quite rightly, these cars have so much aerodynamic dependency that when they do get close to one another, you're going through a fast corner and you're too close, the turbulent air coming out of the back of the car in front can really upset the aerodynamics on the front of your car.
The way downforce works is, well, it pushes the car down onto the racetrack and makes those tyres grip up nicely for you. And that works thanks to the air pushing the car down and smoothly going over the car. When there's no air to push the front down because it's being pushed upwards by the car in front, the front end doesn't have much grip anymore, and you understeer wide. And the turbulent air as well, when it pushes up and sideways and around and upside down, that's when the car gets a little bit squirrely behind the preceding machine. Right now. Yeah?
It's very much this topic of discussion in the Australian V8 Supercar Championship at the moment, isn't it? It's of course, you wouldn't think you would talk about aerodynamics as an issue with a touring car based series. And I remember watching the opening race of the season, the Adelaide 500, and James Courtney, when he had his one and only race with Team Sydney, and he had an accident where he ploughed into the wall. around a fast right-hander following the car in front, and he referred to it as, it was a brilliant description. He was just like, he called it the Bermuda Triangle of aero wash. Just the grip just disappeared.
That it did. Kuro right now has closed in on this lap. It's been a good 6 or so kilometers for him. He was 2/10 quicker on the last lap, and I dare say that will be about the same this time as well. 46.0 for Modov, 45.9 for Kuro. So actually, Modov gained a little bit back through that last corner. That last corner is where the downforce will be really bad because, well, lack of downforce will be bad because it is so on the edge as it is already. A few qualifying cars were sliding through there. Definitely going to have to be a lot slower to get through there in the turbulence of the car in front when you're chasing as opposed to having clean air.
Indeed, yeah. And you just see the car on the coming out the slow corners when the drivers are applying full power, 50, 75, 100% throttle, and applying it on. You see the rear of the car wiggle. Now, on camera, it doesn't look overly much of a big deal, but on board, they're having to constantly fight with the steering wheel to try and keep the car moving, try and keep the momentum up, and of course, every time they get, dearie me, that was a heart and mouth moment there, Ryan. I thought Quero had gone too much onto the grass, and I thought, oh god, this could be a big spin coming here, but using every last millimetre of the track and more, so you can tell he is really pushing on to try and catch Karl Modov.
No worse feeling than running second for the entire race, right on the back of the leader and not being able to pass him, so Quero will be hoping and pushing like crazy to get there. Bacigalupo and Holland are still scrapping for P4. It is still Bacigalupo with the edge at the moment, but Holland has had a great run through Maggotts and Beckett's. Now to Chapel Curve. Not quite close enough at the end of Hanger Straight. But he is right there, challenging. Looking for a way by. Not going to be close enough into Club. He's trying to force some error from Bacigalupo. Maybe a pinch of the brake or a slight wiggle heading into the corners. That's all he needs to get by.
Yeah, that's often when circuits where it's a little bit more difficult to overtake, it's just putting on that pressure, trying to fill the mirrors of the car in front and just put them under the cosh a little bit and try and force them into a little bit of a mistake. And in these cars at this level, you've really got to be pushing absolutely far beyond what you think the car can do, because it's just so capable. The braking performance is out of this world, and the aerodynamic grip is incredible as well. So, you've got to really be pushing the envelope. So if you have someone behind you putting pressure on, it can be easy to make a mistake. Like that. I feel quite proud. I almost called that one. The 84 of Bacigalupo, just a very small lock-up on the brakes. And look at that. That has given David Holland plenty of motivation to try and catch up.
He was so fortunate which corner that occurred, because it naturally put him on the inside line for Luffield. And due to the nature of that corner, his exit wasn't compromised by that awkward entry, and he was able to recover from that mistake. But Holland has now seen the mistake, and he knows that Bacigalupo is feeling the pressure, or he's not comfortable as he could be. So it is an incentive for Holland to keep pushing and keep charging. Just over 10 minutes remaining in this race. These guys 15 seconds now away from the leaders. See what Rodrigo Meets has closed in a bit. I think he was about 9 seconds back from the leaders. Only 6.2 seconds back now.
Yeah, he's
so over the last 20 or so minutes, he's done pretty good.
Yeah, he's definitely been better in the second stint, hasn't he? He's seems to be his style, where he comes alive in the second stint. Very much takes his time in the opening stint and knows that it's a 60-minute race. It's a long race. So yeah, Rodrigo Mies definitely coming into his own. But tell you what, you got to take your hat off to Karl Modov, because he has been put under the largest amount of pressure. But he is handling it so well, with Quero still just hovering around that second or so gap that's sort of gone back and forward a tenth or two either way, but it's really been pretty consistent, and that has been down to, well, Karl Modov not flinching under the pressure.
yet. Hasn't flinched yet. There is still 10 minutes left and the pressure ramps up exponentially. The closer you get to that finish line, the closer you get as well, the more likely your mind is to wander and start thinking about how you'll celebrate when you win.
Yeah, what brand of champagne are you going to drink in the bar afterwards?
Exactly right.
So you see there, that's a great shot thanks to our cameraman, Dougie Beard. You see, look how busy the driver is on the steering wheel. Just little, it just bobbles around, and you've really got to be on top of these cars. They've got a lot of performance, but they are, look at that, see? There you look at that big dab of oversteer, and that's going to, oof, dearie me, that's going to be almost every lap where you've got to manage that little bit of oversteer, putting in all that power. It's naturally aspirated V8, 600 horsepower, so there's a lot of power for the weight, and just applying that throttle, the car just wants to wiggle. And that, I think, as you mentioned earlier, Ryan, I think that must be something to do with the fact that the aerodynamic downforce hasn't quite kicked in at that speed yet.
How T-Rex are pointing out, probably the cheapest champagne possible to celebrate your race win. And I would echo that sentiment.
Well, I'm a fan of Paul Roger. Paul Roger is my favourite non-vintage champagne. Very, very nice indeed.
Well, we can't all live a life of luxury like you, unfortunately. There is a lapped car coming up as well for Modoff here. Will that play a part in this battle? That's David Cristelli. Could take some of the air away from Modoff. Could give him a handy tow down Hanger Straight.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wonder if the move, coming down the Hanger Straight, the down into Stowe, if you can just get close enough. It's really tricky because Maggots Beckett's Chapel, this section they've just gone through, you need to have a bit of a distance between the car in front to go through there quickly, otherwise you'll get the aero wash. But then that doesn't mean that you'll get the draft going down the Hanger Straight and then be able to make a move into Stowe. So it's a really, really interesting, really interesting dynamic here between these two drivers. But Quero closes up again. It's yo-yoed back to 0.7 of a second. Is that going to be enough? It seems that he can just get close enough, and then he hits the dirty air, and then he can't get any closer, it would appear.
So, Modoff got a handy tow down the Hanger Straight. That's the answer to that question. Is P6 is looking dicey. That's Horatio Carquin. Nicholas Rubelart in behind him, and then it's like Freddy's as well is right there, but not quite there enough into Club. But there's more laps cars as well for Modoff. He's got Galaz, Ferrari who are battling, and Crota in a minute or so as well that he's going to catch. So certainly not smooth sailing for our leaders in terms of clean air and track position.
Definitely not. No, that's and so as of course the later into the race we get, that's going to be more and more of an issue. And you saw a great view of it there, going a little bit wide. Oh, Paulo Munoz banging wheels. Oh, coming through the opening village section. Oh, this is getting pretty feisty. He goes for the switchback, but he's going to have the inside coming through around the tight corner, Melbourne Loop, and then up towards Aintree on the gas, flat out in one of these cars through Aintree and onto the Wellington Straight. And Munoz using, well, interesting that he's in a Pure Sims car there. He just all onto the green paint, but doesn't appear to be given a slowdown penalty.
Based off their previous lap times, I might suggest that Munoz had lost the spot to Uribe and then got it back through the first part of turn 1, because Munoz's previous lap was 1.2 seconds slower than Uribe, who has a look and forces Munoz wide at Cops. That was a bold move from Uribe, but now he's going to be stuck on the outside for Maggot, squeezing Munoz, and, well, kind of has to back out of it there.
Yeah, there wasn't really much of an option. It was back out or have a crash, and he chose back out, which is the sensible option, of course. But yeah, I think well spotted, Ryan. It looks like Munoz has a little bit of a pace advantage here from Uribe. We've seen Munoz, he has top 5 pace, so it's not been quite the day he would want, but still a finish in the top 10. Not a total disaster with 5 minutes and 50 seconds to go, so about 4 laps or so to go here at Silverstone.
Rubelar very wide. He had a look at Kalkin at Stowe. Obviously, it hasn't worked out because he's still behind him. Getting the exit out of turn 4 is so critical because it launches you out onto the Wellington straight, but it wasn't a good exit for Rubelar, and both the Wellington and the Hangar straight, they just seem to be a couple hundred meters too short for these cars.
It does, yeah. Good, very good point. Yeah, it's and of course the corners leading on to them is really important for tyre management over the race, because Aintree is completely flat. That flat left-hander coming onto the Wellington straight that we saw them a moment ago, and there you've got to really try and minimise the input on the steering wheel to try and stop basically stop unnecessarily scrubbing the tyres. You can go through at the same speed, but keep the tyres in better condition. So that's very important. And this is the point where the guys, they've now been on these same tyres for 55 minutes, and they are bound to be, well, past their best, to be honest. But it doesn't appear to be keeping the guys at the front down. I mean, but they're lapping. Well, Karl Modov last time around at 145.8, Mauricio Cuero 146.1. But Mauricio Cuero did a 144.9 earlier in the race, so the tyre life definitely not what it was.
Traffic playing havoc with the leaders, and Karl Modov has got by. So is Cuero, Verratti, and Emperor Touch down the straight. Verratti takes a spot away, but that has extended the gap a little bit between our top two. It's now 1.6 seconds in favour of Modov. He navigated those cars a little bit cleaner than Cuero was able to.
Yeah, I think that could be pivotal to the result of this race. That traffic gives and it takes away, and it's almost like there's the traffic gods that decide if what the lap cars are going to do. Are you going to catch them on the straight? Are you going to catch them at a slow point? And well, they were very kind to Karl Modov there, and he took full advantage of it. That you've really got to have the aggression to go through as well. He wants this race win, and that could be the pivotal turning point in this motor race.
Bacigalupo and David Holland, there's no laps cars interfering in this battle, or at least there shouldn't be. Not with only 3 minutes remaining. Bacigalupo's worried. He's sneaking his way down the back straight. Don't think he needed to. He is not within striking distance at the moment. It should be 2 laps to go for these drivers when they cross the line here.
Yeah, David Holland right on the case, and it would just take even half a mistake from Bacigalupo and he will be able to pounce as they head down towards the very, very quick corner of Kopp's really fast right-hander there. Apparently, that is actually flat out in an LMP1 car, and that is an absolutely terrifying thought.
It is, and honestly, I wouldn't even want to go through there in one of these cars. Still too high speed for me, in real life, of course. 2 minutes left.
Yep, absolutely. As they come along the Wellington Straight down towards Brooklands, underneath the view of the British Racing Drivers Club, there'll be plenty of champagne going on in there, always. Given the that is a prestigious ticket to get invited to watch a race up there.
You got one?
Absolutely not. One day.
Look how close he is through Kopp's. Closes in as Bacigalupo makes a little error, runs a fraction wider than he meant to. That's Cristelli in front. He could get in the way of these two.
Yeah, he could be one of the pieces on the chessboard in this little battle. They're going to catch him at, well, it's hard to tell. They might catch him at quite a difficult moment. So as you see, Bacigalupo leads Holland as they head into Stowe. Really tricky corner, blind on the entry there, and you've got to get on the power and try not to use the track limits. And then, now that's interesting. Bacigalupo goes very defensive and has a little bit of a lock-up, but again gets away with it. I tell you what, he's having his mistakes on the brakes in just the perfect places, isn't he?
He has had to go defensive there. One of the only braking zones big enough that you can actually throw a dive in. The rest of the braking zones, even the ones at the end of the big straights, lead into quite flowing corners. You're not slowing down as much as you are for Club. Bacigalupo got very close to being overtaken by Holland there, who's got a great exit out of turn 4 onto the Wellington straight. About 3 car lengths back, maybe 2. Braking zone's not long enough for a dive. Sets up a little bit wider on the entry.
Oh, he's really putting the pressure on, isn't he? That will be filling the mirrors of Bacigalupo's Dallara P2 car as they head around, heading down towards Copse. Really fast right-hander, as we said. And then you can use a lot of room on the exit as well. Now, can Holland make a move? He's got to stay with Bacigalupo through the really quick section of Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel, and get the run down the hangar straight and try and make the move into Stowe. But can he stay close enough, coming through these really high downforce spots? Looks like he might be able to make a move here. Oh, and look at them weave.
Out front, Karl Modov though fends him off from the pole. Modov is going to win in Silverstone. A fantastic drive for him. Burrow will pick up second place. Bacigalupo has fended off David Holland into Club, and he's comfortable now.
Well done from Bacigalupo there. He was under an immense amount of pressure, and to not flinch there, very impressive indeed. What a high quality motor race here at Silverstone. Again, here in the Precision Racing League, the standard of driving here, it just blows my mind every time, Ryan. The pace at the front of this race. Karl Modov did not put 1 foot wrong in 60 minutes of running. Very impressive indeed.
It certainly was a fantastic drive, as the battle's not over for the minor placings either. Ferraris is under pressure from Gaiori and Isla. I think it's Isla the one that's going to make the move. Gaiori's driving it down the middle of the racetrack, and where's Isla going to go? Is it left? Is it right? It's right to the inside. Gaiori tries to cover. He goes very deep to do so. Can he get it turned for the exit? He can. Into Club. Is there anything late doing? No.
Oh, good respect from the guys there coming into Club chicane. Very easy to get into contact. It's so tight, but it looks like they'll finish in that order then. Over the line they come.
And with that, we will go to a break here on the Global SimRacing Channel, but stay with us on the other side of this, coming back for your full results and interviews from Silverstone, the PRL LMP2 series. welcome back to the Global SimRacing Channel at Silverstone. Action wraps up from round 3 of our PRL LMP2 series, and this is how they finish. Murdoch wins from the pole by 2.2 seconds over Mauricio Cuero. Rodrigo Meets finishes in 3rd. Lucas Bacigalupo fends off the charges from David Holland. They finish 4th and 5th. Calquin 6th. Freda is 7th. Rubala falls to 8th. Late on, Paulo Munoz is 9th, and Uribe comes home in 10th.
Finishing in the 11th spot was the 71 of Sean Romig, just under a minute behind the leader. Michael Overbay was 12th in the 68 machine, followed by Mark McDonald, Chris McGrath and Brian Daly. David Fishman finished in 16th in the 696 car, with Michele Ferraris in 17th, followed by Steve Geori, Christian Eisler and Christopher Richard.
21st place will go the way of Rodrigo Munoz. Eric Luke finishes 22nd. He was the last car on the lead lap. Not a bad result for him after not setting the qualifying time. Rest of the cars a lap down. Ted Lowendijk, Stephen Verratti, Rodrigo Improda, David Cristelli, Hugo Galaz, De Silva, De Hamel, Nathan Lewis, and the rest of the field, David McDonald, Kenny Rodriguez, Nicholas Bornand, and Eduardo Avila Gack coming home in 34th position. Hey, we've got Carl Rodolph here with us. Good job, Carl. That was a fantastic win, and it's to fight for it all race long.
Hey, thanks, guys. That was that was fun. After getting my butt whipped on the first race this season, I really felt really like I wanted to win a race and prove that I can race with Rodrigo and these guys. And I thought I had a really good pace this week, and then the whole time I was like just running perfect laps at Mauricio. It's like I'd pull 0.2, and then next lap he'd be 0.2 closer, and the whole race you just couldn't shake him. I was actually really afraid he was saving fuel the whole time. So being able to come out of the stop still in the lead was huge. I was finally able to bring my sweating down to a reasonable level.
So what about the pit stop phase? You get through that looking pretty comfortable, and then it didn't look very comfortable. Really, the lapped cars got in amongst it. Do you feel like you were safe if you hadn't had that advantage fall your way at the end there, or was it going to be pretty tight?
It was one mistake. With these cars, especially as the tires wear, and this track's tough, the beginning section, those tight lefts, if you just get a little wide and drop a wheel in the dirt, the traction control is so overbearing that you could lose half a second with one tiny mistake. So it's really... you're really just cautious, and luckily everyone did a really good job of getting out of the way. No one really held me up. I got pretty close to one of the cars to the S's one lap, and I was worried about that kind of just causing a little bit of understeer because I knew Mauricio was super fast to the S's. But yeah, luckily it worked out. We were able to get by smoothly and hold off for the win.
Well, you certainly did a good job of that. Who do you want to thank for helping you get it done today?
I just want to thank Delta Sport, Driven Texas, Move Up, and thank you guys, Global SimRacing Channel, PRL, Kenny Rodriguez, everyone involved, and David, my teammate, just for working together. It's nice to have somebody as fast as him to kind of ping things off of. So thanks, guys. Take care, and I won't be here next week. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss the round, so I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Well, we'll miss you, but we'll see you again in a couple weeks' time. Thank you, Carl.
Take care, guys.
Peter Mackay standing by with our next interviews.
So we have Paulo Munoz in here in the commentary box. Paulo, it was eventful. Oh, my apologies. My apologies.
I'm just translating.
Sorry. My apologies, Paulo. That's my mistake. Mauricio, what a drive. Very impressive indeed. Tell us about your race.
Bueno, Mauro,
Primero,
fantástico manejo y cuéntanos.
había entendido justo eso. La verdad es que muy contento con la carrera. Di el 200% sin errores y la verdad es que la carrera finalmente se finalizó netamente porque él fue mejor. Él realmente fue mejor, yo di el 200% y... No, o sea, es que la verdad es que no tengo más comentarios. Yo muy contento con la carrera.
Well, he says he's very happy. He gave 200% throughout the race, made no mistakes, and in the end, it just came down to Carl being better. for the hour the race lasted.
Very honest indeed. Now, what I'd love to know is, of course, Riccio and Carl ran together so closely all the way through the race, and how we were talking a bit on the broadcast about the aerodynamics and the dirty air, and how easy is it to follow the car in front, or do you have to always have a little bit of a gap between yourself and the car in front to follow safely?
Preguntan que, bueno, tú estuviste al lado de Moff toda la carrera y estaban hablando en la transmisión del aero y el aire sucio. Y quieren saber qué tan difícil es seguir en el auto y tu experiencia.
Siendo muy sincero, era complicado. Llegué creo que a estar como a 0.6 de modo, y la verdad es que era muy complicado tanto frenar, entrar a las curvas rápidas, hasta incluso acelerar, que el auto se iba hacia afuera siempre. Pero aún así se notaba que modo iba más rápido. La verdad es que independientemente que yo tuviese rebufo, el de adelante es el que siempre tiene que intentar alejarse.
Well, he says that it's very tricky with the dirty air because the car basically doesn't stop, doesn't turn, and it gets very pitchy on throttle. So it was difficult to stay with him, but in the end, Moto stayed ahead. So it's all down to Moto being better.
Very honest indeed. Well, thank you so much, guys, for coming in to join us in the commentary box. And Mauricio, congratulations. Or felicitaciones, would that be the right word?
That's the right word, yeah.
Felicitaciones on the podium, and looking forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you.
So that was Mauricio Cuero, who comes home in P2 at the end of that one. And we've also got our third place man, Rodrigo Meets, here with us today. Rodrigo, good job. You're up there on the podium. Almost, though, had it a lot harder without that last gasp effort in qualifying.
Yeah, hello guys. Yeah, it was a very hard race for me. I haven't got any. Let me say it again. I haven't got many time to practice in the week, so with the few hours that I practiced, I came into the race and do what I could. I had a bad time on the qualifying because I struggled a lot with the lap, but I could put a good time on the last lap of the quali. But yeah, on the race, it was only keeping the car good. I had a little contact with Paulo that missed the reference on the braking on the second turn. But yeah, it was a good race. Good points for the championship.
Yeah, it was indeed good for the championship, in which you sit at the top of, at the moment, Modov and Cuero pulling a little bit on you. What are you going to do different to finish ahead of them so they don't jump you in that championship?
Yeah, I got to train more. I think that it's a very important thing that the time that you put on the training for the race. This week, as I said, I haven't got any much time because university I'm having a lot of test exams, so yeah, I'll try to put a little more time for practicing and more effort on the setup because I struggle a lot with the setup on this track. You have many corners and it's so bumpy that you have many things to do on the car to keep it well.
Hey, well, I think a podium is pretty good today, and consistency is key for championships as well. So keep it up and you'll be in good stead. Who do you want to thank for helping you get it done?
Yeah, I want to say thanks to my family that was watching, to my mom, my dad, to the team, to Punto.cl. I want to say thanks to my teammates, Mauricio, Nicolás, Horacio, and want to say thanks to my friends on the university that were watching me. Victor, un saludo para ti. Yeah, that's all, guys.
Hey, well, thank you very much for joining us. Best of luck next time out.
See you guys.
Those Rodrigo Meeks picks up third place today, and that, I think, brings us towards the end of our show. Big thanks, as always, to Simsa and ButtKicker for their continued support of the series, helping to make it possible, and everyone at Precision Racing League who organises this and brings it all together. And of course, the broadcast isn't possible without the companies who provide the software and hardware listed here on your screen, as well as Junalond, who provides all of the music. You can see the screen for how to get a hold of any of them. Big thanks to Joe and Peter with me today. You can find out more about GSRC, including our upcoming races, at globalsimracingchannel.com or on social media at GSR Channel at Twitter, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Gram. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube as well, so that you don't miss any of the action. Next time out for this series, we're headed to Road America. For other series, well, we've got upcoming races listed on your screen, so check them out and mark them down on your calendar. But from all of us here in the booth tonight, thanks for joining us, and until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.